Hey, King and Porter, just wanted to give you a quick video. It's take about 5 minutes to run through kind of what you need to know for Beowulf. Um, so Beowulf was written. Y'all take these notes either kind of in the front of your book or just somewhere, so you have this. Written in what's called the Anglo-Saxon era, and go ahead and write this timeline. 410 to 1066 is what's considered the Anglo-Saxon era, and this is AD, right? So about 1500 to 1000 years ago. So not actually terribly long ago. It was actually written in Old English, which is, we can't even read it anymore, but it is the ancestor of our language. So the Anglo-Saxon era, this is what it was. There were all these Viking tribes, right? Think of them. They probably, were somewhat like this. Like this is an actual helmet. These are the actual boats they would have sailed to different places to attack villages. So think just like very classic, like How to Train Your Dragon Vikings. Um, the Roman Empire owned England. So this is the island of Britain, right? The Roman Empire owned it. They moved out, right? So there's basically all this free land, and all these Viking tribes decide to go move into this free land, which makes sense, right? And so 410, under that, I want you to put this is when the tribes move to England. They move in, they settle England, and this is what starts the Anglo-Saxon era. I also want you guys to see that these were pagan tribes. So their gods would have been like Thor, Loki, Odin, all the Norse, Viking gods that Marvel's taken and made a bunch of movies out of. They were actually Norse gods. And so these are the ones that they would have been worshiping. Okay, so they move into England. This starts the Anglo-Saxon era. And about 100 years later, some missionaries come and convert most of the tribes to Christianity. All right, so relatively recent. After about 100 years, most of these tribes that have been pagan for as long as they've been around are converted to Christianity. Okay, and I'll tell you why that matters. The text of Beowulf is written about 250 years later. We don't know the author, but we know according to this timeline, he was probably Christian, right? Because it's about 250 years after this mass conversion. So he's probably a Christian author. But what Beowulf is writing about is he's writing about what happened back here. He's writing about before the Anglo-Saxon invasion, right? So when the tribes were living back here, he's writing his own history, basically, or the history of his people. So back in this time, since he's writing about before even the Anglo-Saxon era, all of these tribes were still pagan. So what we have with Beowulf is a Christian author writing about a pagan past. And so what you're going to see and what I want you guys to look for as we read is this weird mix between Christianity and paganism, right? So like one verse will say something very Christian, the next verse will say something very pagan. And it's like, why is that happening? Well, it's probably because the author's a Christian, but at the same time, even in his own recent past, like his great grandparents, were staunch pagans. And so it's like a clashing of two worlds. So we'll talk about that more. Um, Here is a basic premise for what you guys need to know about the story. There's two tribes that I want you guys to keep in mind. One is the Danes, and they're also known as the Shieldings. And their king is a guy named Hrothgar. Right, so the Danes and Shieldings, that is one tribe, not two. And yeah, they're ruled by King Hrothgar. The other tribe that I want you to know is a tribe called the Geats or the Geats. Their king is a guy named Hygelac that you'll want to keep in mind. And then the other character that you'll need to know is Beowulf. And he is a warrior of the Geats or the Geats, right? So he's a Beowulf. Excuse me, he's a Beowulf. He is a Geat warrior or a Geat Thane is what they call them, right? And so they'll call Beowulf sometimes, they'll call him a Hygelac Thane, right? Which just means a warrior of Hygelac. So don't get confused when you see Hygelac's Thane, they're referring to Beowulf. And here's the basic premise. Hrothgar, right? Remember, who is a Dane, build the hall, which is also like a palace, and names it Heorot, right? It's this beautiful hall. The palace is then attacked by a monster named Grendel, and then Beowulf, a Yayat, shows up to help defeat Grendel. So that's the basic premise of the story. As you read, make sure you're annotating. Also, in the right-hand column of every page, you don't need to read the introduction, so you can skip all that. But on the right-hand column of every page, our edition includes like a little Spark Notes. So that'll tell you like what's about to happen on that page or in that section. Super helpful. Make sure you utilize that. And yeah, you guys will read through line 661.